We live in a democracy and we should be able to discuss everything openly. This is one of our guiding principles and another reason why we as the Swiss health television company QS24 want to share other perspectives with you that may not always match normal medicine. Due to a new regulation by YouTube, it may now be the case that some of the very polarising videos are deleted from time to time. Our website, qs24.tv, under the heading Censorship Videos, we will continue to make them available to you because QS24 stands for democracy and freedom of opinion.
A warm welcome to all our viewers to our series Natural Medicine. Today we have prepared something very special for you, dear viewers. I have a scientist here today, Hans Rausch. And Hans Rausch isn't just anyone. I'll quickly read to you who he is. He's a biologist and chemist. He's visiting professor at the TCM University in Nanchang, that's in China. He's a lecturer at the ISNA University of Applied Sciences in Germany. He represents the Foundation for Phytotherapists and develops their tools for them. He has developed his units of measurement worldwide as the gold standard for over 3,000 substances that are used. Every authority knows him in this regard, and the industry, the pharmaceutical companies, are his customers. In China, but also in Japan, he's one of the top scientists. He's Deputy Federal Chairman at the German Standardization Institute. We know that as DIN. He is an officially recognized expert in pharmaceutical law and a counter-expert in legal disputes. And this gentleman is with me today, and it's a great honour for me to welcome him today. Hello, Hans, a warm welcome. Thank you for the invitation. I'm pleased that today we can also go a little more into detail about professional issues. Yes, it is also a great honour for me to do that today, and it was important to me to introduce you in detail so the viewers can really see that you know what you're talking about. And the topic today is actually this story, which almost annoys me a little. Today I see people walking in and out of every store all the time and always take this disinfectant. Well, I know from the Swiss Federal Office of Public Health that we should do that it's good. It's against bacteria and against viruses, and we can thus prevent us from taking any risk of infection or confront others with it. And now I heard yesterday evening, while we were eating raclette, and that is probably not correct in many cases. Yes, the general assessment has to be massively corrected. Number one, whether it is so applicable to the human organism, its microbiome, so deliberately destroying its natural colonization with microorganisms is something we'll ignore for now. The human skin normally has around 200,000 microorganisms per square centimetre. So, a huge number of microorganisms, most of which we even need for a natural life. Without them, we're not viable. That said, the destruction of this microbiome has an impact that has basically not been scientifically investigated at all to this day. If you now go one step further and say we want to kill bacteria and viruses, then of course you have to add one thing. To put it simply, all bacteria cannot be killed with one and the same mechanism, and the same applies to viruses. If we now say specifically in the corona crisis, we have the problem that we want to kill viruses and bacteria. I don't know why we should kill bacteria now, which do not represent such a risk for us in this crisis. Let's just leave it at that. I don't think it is so constructive. Well, a relatively simple mechanism has been developed in a short time frame, so a disinfectant. Legal mechanisms were disregarded so that many companies were able to guarantee a comprehensive supply. and the WHO has developed a formulation which consists of two main components, which is alcohol in a certain composition, that is 75%, and an antiviral agent, which is hydrogen peroxide, which everyone knows from hair bleaching. This means that if I use hydrogen peroxide in an aqueous solution, it is wonderfully virucidal. So it destroys viruses. So it'll probably rip something out, right? Basically, oxidizes the virus, so that in many cases, it can no longer exist. The bacteria are usually killed by 70 to 75% alcohol. The scientific variant says 70%. Why now 75% was taken is because the coronavirus has certain sensitivities against 75% alcohol. So, the statement that we destroy viruses and bacteria through this mixture is actually wrong, because through the combination of hydrogen peroxide with alcohol, the hydrogen peroxide decomposes, meaning that the antiviral agent is lost within minutes during manufacturing. It neutralizes itself. It neutralizes itself, which means that the hydrogen peroxide is no longer present in the disinfectant when it leaves the factory. But that's kind of an embarrassing mistake. In the special case of corona, it doesn't play such a big role, because there is hope that this alcoholic solution is still sufficient to destroy the coronavirus on the contact surface. The real evidence is also very poor. But viruses are destroyed or attacked by the hydrogen peroxide. Yeah. And now you're saying that corona is more likely to be killed from alcohol. Regarding the coronavirus, it is claimed that the alcohol alone should be enough. There is no real scientific evidence. However, the official virucidal component that was just added to this mixture to destroy viruses does not exist, because it decomposes during the manufacturing process. So the arguments are based on a very shaky story. Even if it decomposes, it will still work, because they don't want to admit that they actually thought wrong. Well, you actually need two tubes, a tube with that 75% alcohol and a tube with hydrogen peroxide. And then we have the clean solution. That would be an option, but of course you have to say one thing. Both of these agents are anything but beneficial for the skin, or for human skin. I'd like to go back to this topic in the end, but in theory it would be correct, first this and then the other, but not with each other, or other virucidal agents that can be combined with alcohol without destroying them. So these are the two options. Either I separate them from each other, or I use other active ingredients that have a virucidal effect and are alcohol compatible. I'm going to take a step away from corona and take a look at the hospitals, where it has actually been, since the discovery of hygiene, that everyone disinfects their hands a lot. Is this always done with alcohol, or is it also done with a combined mixture? No, the disinfectants typically used there have been very well researched scientifically. And there are completely different mechanisms, different active ingredients, which have, for decades, developed and proven their positive effect. So it was only in this short time, in the pandemic situation, in the opinion of politicians, that it was necessary to provide the people with disinfectants quickly and nationwide, without misusing the resources for medicine. So this cheap copy was developed for these purposes. So The classic disinfectant that is used in the professional sector has a completely different quality than that. It also partly contains skin moisturizing components to simply prevent permanent damage for the long-term user. So we have two completely different product lines. But then an incredible number of doctors should actually exclaim and say, what are we doing here at all with these disinfectants, which, in that sense, doesn't actually bring the benefits that we're promised? I don't know. Well, of course, you also have to add the knowledge about this is not as widespread. And, of course, many compromises are simply accepted in times of crisis because they say it's better than having nothing. Is that so? It is always a weighing of interests of how much it harms and how much it helps. Then let's really talk about the damage so that all viewers at home are able to get a picture of whether this is the right way for them or not. Well, I'm going to dig a little. I hope you're not angry with me. There are studies that someone who grows up in a very sterile environment as a child carries a massively increased risk of allergies. So, a clear distinction. A child growing up in a rural farm, the allergy risk is 20%, compared to someone who grows up in the city under, let's say, highly sterile conditions. So this attempt to keep everything away from people, on the one hand, has the advantage that the person doesn't get sick, but on the other hand, has the disadvantage that the body forgets to deal with diseases. So to modify the own immune system in Western industrial nations, if you simplify it completely, we actually have two immune systems in the human organism. We have an immune system 1 and an immune system 2. Very few people know that. Thank you. One of the immune systems deals primarily with larger molecules and is actually there, in evolutionary terms, to fight worms and so on. And the normal immune system deals with bacteria, viruses and so on. So the smaller ones. So this is when such things happen, if the body is never actually faced with critical connections. The immune system too, which has to deal with the bigger stories, so dealing with worms and so on, notices that it is not needed and puts the immune system 1 on high alert. So there is sometimes an overreaction, and this overreaction is, among other things, made jointly responsible for the development of allergies. This means that too much protection against all possible attacks on the body has the short-term effect that the individual is healthier in the short term, but in the longer run often triggers lifelong allergies. I thought, and you might have to correct me if I heard this wrong, but I always thought that government agencies didn't tell us to constantly disinfect our hands, but rather they told us to wash our hands. Yeah, the difference between washing your hands and disinfecting your hands is very clear. When you wash your hands, most of the skin's microbiome is preserved. So that means the natural protective layer of the skin remains to a certain extent. Only parts of it are removed. So the harm to humans is small. If we use disinfectants, we also destroy the microorganisms that are actually needed for a healthy skin flora. So that means that was the attempt to say, fine, when disinfecting, please only disinfect your hands and not more, to at least keep the damage away, from the rest of the skin. The extent to which people then stick to it, we'll just leave it at that. Many think that if we already have something that's good for us, they actually take this opportunity and destroy more in their organism than they do themselves good. And now, of course, you have to look at something else. The disinfectants for the skin that have been produced in this short time are actually usually without protective mechanisms for the skin itself. So a disinfectant designed for professional permanent users has certain components or certain proportions which also enable a certain skin regeneration, and moisturizing and so on. Well, alcohol massively dries out the skin, so with a, so to speak, cheap, quickly designed skin disinfectant, after repeated use, I massively harm the skin surface, but have no chance to regenerate again. If I then use a normal cream or something else, I cement everything else that I have brought onto the skin and rub it into the damaged skin. So whether the positive effect of disinfection is really there for widespread use, I would not subscribe to that. Now, if people have such sterile hands, but actually have no protection against bacteria and viruses, because it neutralizes itself, then they come out of the store again, put the shopping cart away, go to the car, so they confront their skin, this sterile skin, with bacteria, with God knows what, without a protective cover. Exactly. What happens is we're contaminating our surfaces, our palms, with microorganisms who are not necessarily our friends. And this means that the protective flora, the microbiome, which guarantees skin protection, is destroyed. And then we're actually exposed without protection to an attack. So it may be that in the next few years, our doctors will have to deal with the long-term consequences of this abuse, to put it bluntly. So if you want us to use disinfectants for the hands, then use the right one. Yes, a proper one should be taken. Can we, as viewers, also get our own? If I want to do it and want to use one, buy a decent one myself somewhere. Is there something? There are different producers with proper ones which do not correspond to this fast WHO standard, that also have moisturizing properties and so on. So there is the one with the hydrogen peroxide and alcohol. Those ones don't contain hydrogen peroxide. Then it won't work against viruses. Yes, there are other active ingredients in it that really help there. Oh, there is that? Yes, of course. That said, this quick mass deployment has made sure that it was not necessary to use a typical virucidal active ingredients, because in this amount that was needed worldwide, they would not have been available and could not have been produced in that short time. So that means it was actually an emergency situation. Only this emergency situation has, meanwhile, turned into getting used to it, and now there is still this quickly assembled emergency agent in circulation. But much better than this emergency disinfectant would be a running tap and washing your hands. Washing your hands in the classic way generally ensures massively better results without the damage. We need the skin surface, which is not the direct access. So we rather have a problem if we are constantly putting our hand in the face. The risk of contamination is higher. But to believe, only because I briefly disinfected, that's just conservation of the status quo. The disinfectant doesn't stay on the skin. That means I decontaminated once. 10 seconds later, when I touch anything else, this effect is gone. So we have no long-term protection. That remains on the skin, but it is only a short-term washing. So I can rather wash my hands under the tap with soap than I have the same effect because they're also washed away. So I don't have to disinfect. That is something I assume that actually the fear, and of course these are always the problems, if you are confronted with something new that you are not familiar with, then you will cultivate fear mechanisms in a skipping reaction. And then just look, how does the professional do it, who has to deal with it every day and try to transfer it to the masses? And in my opinion, that is not absolutely necessary. Wow, this is intense. So going back a bit, there are certainly a lot of viewers who say, what can they watch out for that they have something that doesn't actually do any harm, but is useful, fulfills the purpose? Well, established products from well-known manufacturers have been optimized over the years and decades in terms of skin tolerance. They are definitely recommended. These mass products made quickly and briefly are actually unsuitable for this purpose, more harmful than beneficial. You are literally asked to use this stuff before going into a shop. Otherwise you will, well, I only know as an example, when I had to go to a hospital, at the entrance, it was a horror to get in there without disinfecting your hands. I know, that's why I say automatisms are cultivated. If they have ever been checked with regard to their meaningfulness, we'll just leave that as it is. It is purely the fear. There are certain handling mechanisms in the professional field, and it is tried to transfer them to the general public. Whether that now has any effect on it or not has never been adequately tested. These are protective mechanisms born out of fear, not scientific. But you, as an expert, I use very little disinfectant. And how do you feel about it when you see what's going on right now with these disinfectant products? Well, I'll put it this way. I abstain from an opinion to the political influence because I don't understand many of the decision-making processes there. They're not scientifically fathomed to me. I have the problem that many doctors are now being asked, not the fundamental scientists who really deal with virological problems in detail and with fundamental research. And of course, the medical professionals have their standard repertoire and try to extend it to the masses. There is not necessarily a specific reain for this. So, if we're in virus research, and I've worked in virus research myself, I also publish for therapeutics there. When we work there, of course we work with different protective mechanisms. It's not about setting viruses free, but taking security precautions and really work controlled in certain laboratories. Such mechanisms are imperative. You have to make sure that this stuff doesn't get out, that it remains completely shielded from the population. Such mechanisms are of course necessary, and such applications are also necessary. But now, for full coverage, we use face masks that last 6 minutes, and people wear them for 14 days. So the question remains of how sensible is such a decision? And it's similar with hand disinfection. It's a reassurance for the people. One can put it bluntly. Ancient philosophers spoke of opium for the people. It's for the distraction. I wouldn't say that at all. It's just to calm them down, to prevent fear scenarios in the general public. which is also good. Yes, I don't see it negatively. I'm just saying I tend to see the mechanisms that show them we do something for you and you can protect yourself to a certain extent. To which extent you have to pay for that, on the other hand, is always a different story. It always has positive and negative effects. We'll definitely go into this topic later, about face masks, but also about this COVID-19 virus. But we'll do another episode for that, since we already have an expert here like we do today. Thank you very much for this first episode about these disinfectants. I found it incredibly interesting, and it's important to hear that we are lulled into a false sense of security, and perhaps it is better not to use it than to misuse it. Better something good than bad, and better to wash your hands than to use such disinfectants. This is the summary. I've heard it from you. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. Again, it's a great honour that you're here today, and I'm happy. I'm spending a whole day with us. Thank you very much. Dear viewer, you can be sure that we will continue with Hans Rausch. We'll do more episodes, and you really are well advised to stay online, to keep checking what's coming on QS24. And when Hans Rausch comes back, he drops one bomb after the other, and I'm so happy about this. I wish you all the best. Thanks for watching. See you next time.